Hi, my friends. I'm Kaylee Anderson. I'm a registered dietitian, culinary educator, and intuitive eating counselor. And I help people find peace with food and their bodies, feel a little bit more confident in the kitchen, and ultimately experience a little more joy in their lives. So last time we talked about hunger and honoring your hunger, and today we're going to talk about fullness. And just like hunger, honoring your fullness is about strengthening that very important skill, that mind-body connection, and rebuilding trust with your body. And it's also about removing any blocks that might be preventing you from receiving your body's signals. But one key thing that I want everyone to know about fullness and honoring your fullness is that it really can't happen unless you are also honoring your hunger. So if you are not honoring your hunger, if your body does not know that you have unconditional permission to eat next time you're hungry, it's going to be really hard for you to stop eating when you feel full, because your body doesn't trust that you're gonna allow it to eat again when it's hungry. So it's trying to take advantage of this eating situation. So if you still are feeling you're still struggling with the hunger piece, or you haven't watched our hunger video, I suggest pressing pause on this one and watching the hunger video, which is linked below. So back to honoring your fullness. We override our fullness in many different ways. One probably primary way is distracted eating. And we are in the age of distracted eating. So scrolling your phone, watching TV, working while you're eating, driving while you're eating, corralling kids during meal times. There are lots of ways that we multitask while we're eating. And I know that's part of modern life in many ways, but it also disconnects us from our body's signals, makes it difficult to tap in to those signals. We might also be using external sources or external sources of information to tell us when to stop eating instead of our fullness. So that might look like cleaning your plate. Some of us have a hard time leaving food on our plate and kind of use that as a metric of when to stop eating, when all the food is gone. Or using packages or containers to tell you when to stop eating instead of your internal fullness signals. We might also be beginning meals in a state of primal hunger, which throws us way off of our body's signals. And we talked about primal hunger in our hunger video. And we might also just not be wanting to face the emotions that come up with ending a pleasurable eating experience. And that might sound silly, but I think it's very true. I know it's true for me. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So to get in touch with our fullness and to honor it, we're going to walk through 3 steps to get started with that. The first step is identifying what comfortable fullness feels like to you. And the truth is, a lot of the people I work with don't know when I ask them, what does comfortable fullness feel like? It's hard for them to answer that question because they're so used to being in a state of overly hungry from, restricting or suppressing their hunger, or overly full because they've let themselves get to a place of primal hunger and then they just eat right past fullness. So I want you to start reflecting on, what is your desired sensations after a meal? Maybe it's satisfaction, however you would physically characterize that. Or maybe it's, feeling energized. So just reflect on, what does comfortable fullness feel like, so you can start to identify it. Our second step is strengthening the mind-body connection. And we'll do this in a couple ways. So the first way that we'll strengthen the mind-body connection is by creating a calm eating environment. And I know that might sound impossible, but the truth is, in these beginning stages of reconnecting with your body's signals, that presence is really important. It kind of requires that hyper awareness in the beginning. So that might be, removing any distractions that you can, trying not to multitask when you're eating, turning off the TV, putting your phone away if you can, so that you can really tune in. You can also, just take a deep breath before you start eating, to kind of bring yourself into the present moment and remind yourself to be present. And the key here is really just to create some mental space so that you can pay attention to what's happening in your body and pay attention to the food. And again, this isn't a forever thing, but in the beginning, it can be, really game-changing for getting in touch with those signals. The other way that we're going to strengthen that mind-body connection is by taking a mid-meal mindful pause. So the purpose of this pause is to check in with, how is the food tasting? Is it still satisfying? How am I feeling? Maybe you rate your fullness on that scale of 0 to 10, or that pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and kind of see where you're at. And if you haven't reached that point of comfortable fullness as you've identified it for yourself, then you'll continue eating after that pause. Okay, so after we have strengthened the mind-body connection, then we'll move on to the third and final step. And that step is allowing yourself to feel any emotions that might come up with ending a pleasurable meal. And again, I said that might sound silly, but the truth is eating is a pleasurable experience. It's supposed to be pleasurable. And it's totally natural to have emotions attached to ending any pleasurable experience. And if you have a really healthy relationship with food and with your body's signals, then those emotions might not be very strong, or might not even be very noticeable. And the reason is because you know you have unconditional permission to eat, meaning you know that you can eat again when you feel hungry, and you can eat those specific foods. Okay, but if you are in a place where you're still, experiencing a lot of turmoil with your relationship with food and eating, then those emotions might feel really strong because, you're gonna try to suppress your hunger next time you're hungry, or you have foods that are off limits. So if you're eating one of those foods, it's difficult to stop if it feels like you're never gonna, be able to eat it again. So again, back to that kind of key of honoring your fullness, that really comes into play with ending a meal when you're full, and those emotions that might come up. So it's important to know that you have unconditional permission to eat in order to do this last step. So when those emotions come up, you let yourself feel them. You say, oh, this was so good, and this experience was so wonderful, and I'm sad that I'm full and I can't finish every delicious bite of this meal, but I know that next time I'm hungry, I can eat again, and I can eat these specific foods again. So this is not the last time I will experience this pleasure. Let's review those 3 steps. First is identifying what comfortable fullness feels like for you. Second is creating an environment that allows you to strengthen that mind-body connection, be present with your eating experience, and utilizing that mid-meal pause to check in with yourself. And then third is allowing yourself to feel any emotion that might come up when you decide you're comfortably full and it's time to end the meal. So I feel like we've barely scratched the surface with hunger and fullness. There is so much more to unpack here, and we'll revisit these topics for sure in later videos. And if you have any immediate questions, please do reach out to me on my website, KayleeAnderson.com. And until next time, take good care of yourselves.